Hello, my name is Kristen Richmond. I'm the Volunteer Engagement Manager with 365 Health. First, I just want to say thank you for volunteering with us at your local community health fair. Volunteers like you are what make this resource possible. So I just want to say thank you. If you're volunteering for the online registration check-in table, this video is for you. So you're gonna come, you're gonna do your check-in, you're gonna get your t-shirt, and then once it's time to come to your station, all these materials will be here for you. At some fairs, they don't get quite to setting it up, so all these materials may be in an envelope, and you can go ahead and take out the materials and lay them on your table. You should also have pens, and I forgot that you should also have hand sanitizer at every station, and this can be for you and for the participants coming. We want to make sure that everyone feels like they can be safe and clean and sanitized. So when you come, there will be a online registration report. So this report lists out every single participant for the health fair today who has registered online previous to the day of the health fair for their blood work. So you should have a list. It's important to note that this list is in order of appointment time. So it's not in alphabetical order. Some sites, we can get them in alphabetized lists, but more often than not, this list that you're looking at is going to be by appointment time. So when you're checking in those participants, it's good to grab their name and what appointment time they have. That way you can be looking at the right block or the right page of the report. If you're volunteering at a larger health fair that's gonna see a lot of participants, you're gonna see multiple pages. Oftentimes they're double-sided. So just make sure that you kind of review this, familiarize yourself with how these sheets are set up at your health fair. So when participants come, there are going to be a few scenarios that could happen here. But ultimately your job is to check them in, mark them off the list, make sure their paperwork is in order, and then once all that's completed, sending them off to the blood draw area. So first we're gonna go through the most common scenario for participants checking in at the online registration table. So let's assume that they brought their paperwork printed out. So it kind of looks like this. It's gonna have all their information up in these grayed out squares. It's gonna have X's by which tests they purchased for today. So when they come in, they're gonna have their paperwork. They can set down on the table for you. That way you can easily see their appointment time or their name, or you can simply ask. So if they have their paperwork, you're gonna find their name on the list, and there is a column called present. So you're gonna do a little X in that square to mark that participant as present. Once you've marked them as present, you're gonna go back to their form. There's a place on here where it asks how many hours they fasted. As you may know, it's not required any longer to fast for your blood work, but if they did or did not, it's still helpful information for Quest Diagnostics to know when they're processing the blood work. So go ahead and ask them how many hours they fasted, fill it in for them. If it's 0, just write 0. If it's more than 12 hours, just write 12 plus. Then you are going to have the participant sign in date on this first line. It's just consenting for us to take their blood, share the results with them, etc. And then there is a witness line. So we want to make sure that the volunteer at this table witnesses the participant signing. So you'll sign in date in the witness. And then if your participant is 65 years or older, go ahead and ask them if they have Medicare Part B. If they do, they're also going to sign down here. It's another short consent. So once you've marked them present and you've done everything you need to do on their form, you're going to hand the form back to them, and you are going to point them in the direction of the blood draw area. So that is the first scenario, the easiest and hopefully the most common for you. The second scenario is that they are on your list when they come, but they did not print out their form. So this one is also pretty common. I don't know if you're like me, I don't have a printer at home, so I rely on other people to do that for me. So we do provide extra copies of the online registration form within the packet that I talked about earlier, so it should be out on your table. Throughout the day, definitely keep an eye on that stack. If you're finding that you're almost out, contact a 365 Health staff member or one of the planning coordinators at your health fair, and they will go and make copies for you, so that way you can, so that way you don't run out as participants come in. So let's say they didn't bring their form, you found them on the list, so you're still going to mark them present, and then there's a second column right next to it that says no form. You're going to go ahead and mark that column as well for that participant, indicating that they forgot their form. Then you are going to grab the extra copies. One is a front sheet that stays in the lab once their lab work is done, and the second sheet is the participant copy. So the good thing to know about this, and you can even point it out to the participant, is there are lists of optional screenings that could potentially be offered at your health fair. So when you come, make sure you familiarize yourself with what other optional screenings or free screenings they can do at the health fair, and go ahead and point this out to participants as you're giving them the sheet, or if they brought their sheet already, you can still point it out to them. I did forget to mention, if they do have their form but they printed it double-sided, you might still want to give them a copy of this second sheet. That way they have it when they go around to do the free screenings. Otherwise, those screeners won't have any place to write their results, say for blood pressure or height, weight, BMI, or hearing or something like that. We need to make sure they have this. So you marked present, you marked no form, then you're going to give them this form, the top sheet, and a pen, and you're going to have them fill out everything in the top portion of this that would have been filled out had they brought their form. So make sure they don't skip any information, make sure they write legibly, make sure you still do the hours fasted. You'll still need to have them sign, you'll sign as the witness, and again, if they have Medicare Part B, signing down here. There are two important details that are likely to be missed, but please don't miss them. They're crucial. So once you have a form that you're giving to them because they didn't print it out, there is a pre-registration number on the printout of the online registration report. It begins with the letter O. So you're going to find that number associated with that participant that you're working with, and you are going to write that number in the top right-hand corner of the form that you gave them. It's right above this little box here. So write it legibly, write it clearly. That way we can track their blood to this participant after they leave the fair. Crucial step. The second crucial step is making sure that the phlebotomist knows which screenings they purchase. So usually when they print it out, the X's are already printed there for them, so you're gonna have to do that. The way you find that information is, again, by looking back at the online registration report. There are columns here with each of the tests labeled out. So blood chemistry, complete blood cell count, PSA, vitamin D, and so on. And then there's ones or zeros in those respective columns. So if it has a 1 underneath the test, it means they ordered that test, they purchased it. So that test, you're gonna find it on the sheet, and you're gonna mark a very clear X next to that test. So once you've completed that, they filled everything out, you have the online registration number, you've asked them how many hours they fasted, everyone has done their required signing, you give them the second sheet as well. It's important to note they don't need to fill out this information twice, because this is their copy that they're gonna take home. They know where they live, it's fine. So go ahead and hand them both sheets, and again, point them to the direction of the blood jar area and wish them a happy health fair. The third potential scenario for this is they brought their paperwork, but they're not on the form. They're not on the online registration report. You can't find their name. You've looked by appointment time, you've looked through the whole list for their name, and you just don't see it. But they do have paperwork, which leads you to believe that they have paid for their blood work. So what we're gonna do is when we look at this form, at the top, we're gonna see information on the particular site that they registered for their blood work. So let's say we're at the Denver Indian Center Health Fair. It's gonna say Denver Indian Center Health Fair with a unique site ID for that health fair. You might also see Quest Patient Service Center or some other health fair. What you're looking for is the name of the health fair that you are at. So it should say that name of the health fair right up top here. If it says that health fair, then we're good to go. We know they've registered for the correct location and they've registered for their blood work. So any health fair participant that doesn't show up on the online registration report needs to go on this handy piece of paper. It's called the online exception report form. So once again, anyone who's not found on here must be accounted for on this form. So you're just gonna write their pre-registration number, which is that O number that we discussed earlier. That number will be printed on the top right-hand corner, right where you would have handwritten it had they not had their form. So look for that number. It's another indicator that they officially paid. They have that number. So you're gonna write the O number here. You're gonna write the pre-registration site. So again, it's whatever site is listed at the top of that page that they printed out. You're gonna write it right here. You're gonna write the participant name, first and last, please. You're gonna write the participant phone number. Once again, that phone number is listed on their registration form. And then it says brief description of issue. It could simply be they weren't on the list, or if you see a different health fair at the top or Quest Patient Service Center listed at the top of their form, go ahead and write, registered for X site or Quest PSC. So once that is completed, then the process continues. So you're gonna ask them how many hours they fasted, they're gonna sign, you're gonna sign, they're gonna sign again if they're Medicare Part B. You're gonna make sure it wasn't printed double-sided and give them an extra sheet if it was. Hand them back their sheets, send them on their way to the blood draw. So the last scenario for the online registration table is the least likely to happen, but it definitely occurs at least once at every health fair. So be prepared. A participant could come and let's say they're not on the list and they also don't have their paperwork printed out. So the way that we're going to move forward with this participant is we are going to assist them to try to see if they can find their paperwork in their email. So hopefully they have their smartphone, hopefully they feel comfortable maneuvering through their smartphone. So have them look in their email for the date that they registered. They're going to find a confirmation email from 365 Health. Usually it's the support@365health.org email. And there should be an email in there with an attachment and it has their official paperwork. So if they can pull that up on their phone and they can show you that pre-registration ID number that we talked about that starts with the letter O, if they can show that paperwork, then we can go ahead and put them on the exception report, say didn't print out their form, wasn't on the list, go ahead and get them a new paper form, fill it out, and continue the process like we've talked about. Now, if they cannot find any paperwork or evidence that they completed the online registration process and paid for the blood work, really we're looking for that pre-registration number, that O number. If you can't get that from the participant, I want you to stop checking them in, ask them nicely to wait while you go and find either a 365 Health staff member or the site coordinator for your community health fair. They are gonna come over and they are gonna take over working with that participant to try to see if we can validate whether or not they got through the process and paid for the blood work. It's not a huge deal if it turns out that they didn't pay for their blood work, they didn't make it through the online registration process. We're simply gonna walk that participant over to the on-site registration area and have them do a paper requisition form for their blood work that day. If the 365 Health staff member or the site coordinator can find them in our system, then we will give you that O number, that online registration number, and then you'll continue with that process. They weren't on the list, so they must go on the exception report. Once again, anyone not on the list, no matter the scenario, goes on this sheet. And then we'll continue, we'll get them their blank forms, and so on and so forth. So that is everything associated with online registration. I will show that there is a protocol along with all of these other supplemental documents. So please, when you get to your station that morning, go ahead and review this protocol. There are several sheets of instructions that go through all 4 scenarios that I just went through on this video. And then there is also a frequently asked questions. So sometimes participants, they purchase some blood work online and they get to the fair and they're like, oh, I want to do a vitamin D as well, or, insert any other screening there, who want to have that added on to their blood work that they already paid for. No big deal. You're going to get their paperwork. You're going to mark an X next to the test they want to add. I typically do a little circle around it. That way folks can see it's different. And then I am going to take that participant and I'm going to walk them over to the cashier station. And I'm going to let the cashiers know that they want to add on a test, or maybe they want to get a refund on a test. Maybe they didn't want to test anymore and they want a refund on it. Either of those scenarios, they both get taken to the cashier. They have a specific add-on refund sheet and they'll list their participant there, the test they're adding on. They'll have them pay for it right there and get them all squared away, and then send them off to the blood draw area. So that is online registration. Thank you so much for volunteering at such a critical station.